What is going on, Aurora Alliance, and welcome back to Star Wars Battlefront. Now, this is the first Star Wars Battlefront video on my channel, and today we're going to kick it off with a potential Star Wars Battlefront DLC. Now, this is going to be rumours and speculations, as well as some tweets and possible info that has been released by EA Star Wars about the DLC for Star Wars Battlefront. Now, obviously everyone knows at the moment that the Star Wars Battlefront DLC Season Pass has actually been properly announced, and that's going to contain 4 large DLC packs. So the question on everyone's mind right now is, what are these packs actually going to consist of? Like, what's going to be in the DLC packs? Now, one of the main ones which everyone really wants seems to be the Clone Wars. Now, this was initially rejected by DICE and EA, pretty much saying like it's not going to happen and they're going to focus fully on the original trilogy in Star Wars Battlefront. There's been a few tweets of fans tweeting EA Star Wars actually asking, is the Clone Wars going to be in the DLC? Now, at first, like I said, it was initially rejected in one of the tweets by them saying that they were going to focus only on the original Star Wars trilogy. Now, whenever anyone tweets them, it seems to be replied based around the Season Pass, which has gave everyone the idea that the Clone Wars might actually be one of the DLC packs in the Star Wars Battlefront Season Pass. One of the major drawbacks of the Clone Wars being in the DLC, and one of the reasons why I personally don't think it's going to be in the DLC, is the fact that the droids actually won't be able to use star cards. Now, the star card system is pretty much set up fully for the original trilogy and The Force Awakens, especially with the clone troopers and the First Order clone troopers being pretty much humans, and then the rebels obviously being humans as well. Now, a lot of the star codes probably won't work with the droids, because obviously they've got droidicas, they've got super battle droids. They're not going to be able to use jetpacks, although the super battle droids are more likely to be able to use them, but you're not going to have the choice of weapons as much with droids as you would as normal troopers, or just normal people. So I really don't think that they're going to use the Clone Wars. However, it has been revolving more around the fact that they might actually use them because of the tweets and the info they've been releasing, but it's not really practical. The star cards aren't really practical with the droids, so that kind of makes it for me like it's not going to really work, and I don't think there's going to be actual Clone Wars DLC in the Star Wars Battlefront Season Pass. Now, everyone's been thinking that The Force Awakens is actually guaranteed pretty much to be one of the DLC packs, or maybe it's 2 of them, we're not sure yet. But this will work really well because you've got the heroes and villains of Kylo Ren, Captain Phasma, Rey, and Finn, and they all easily could have their own special abilities. We've seen it happen with Leia, Han, Luke, Emperor Palpatine, Vader, and Boba Fett. So I really think that the heroes and villains from The Force Awakens could easily have their own special abilities. So the next thing I'm going to move on to is the Force Awakens locations that could be used for the DLC. Now, you've obviously got the main one, which is the Starkiller base. You see that in the trailer where all the stormtroopers are lined up. You see, I think, Captain Phasma and Kylo Ren both there. So I do think that could be heavily used. Maybe they wouldn't use the platform which is shown in the trailer where it has all the stormtroopers, but you can definitely see the new AT-ATs and the new vehicles there. So I think that could be a definite location for the Force Awakens DLC. I'd imagine as well we might see a night map on this actual planet. I don't know if it is this planet in the trailer though, but when we see actually Kylo Ren and Finn both in the snowy forest, I do imagine that would be on the same place as the Starkiller base. You might get your day map, which is based around maybe it's the First Order facilities, the main facilities, and then you get your snowy night map, which is maybe a bit more on the outskirts of the facilities. Maybe that's when you can use Finn and Kylo Ren as the hero and villain in that map. I don't know, I'm just sort of speculating here, but I think that could be a possibility again. And I think Forest is probably going to be a main map in the actual DLC for The Force Awakens on Star Wars Battlefront, because again, you see in the trailer Rey's there. Obviously, she looks up into the sky, and you can pretty much tell that that is a full-on forest. Whether it's the Starkiller base planet, I don't think it is, because obviously there's no snow in that one, but I do think that is highly possible. Now, as well in the trailer, you see a lot of X-Wing versus new TIE fighter fighting going on in the skies above a lot of locations, not necessarily in space, but on actual planets. These could be easily used for the Fighter Squadron game modes, as well as maybe implementing them into sort of Walker Assault or something. Maybe change up the game mode a little bit for the Star Wars Force Awakens DLC. Like I said, whether it be Fighter Squadron or actually on the ground, I'm not too sure yet, but there is a lot of locations to be used. But there's not, like I said, there's not only just planet locations, there is quite a lot of space scenes, which brings me on to my next part of this topic, which is the Star Wars Force Awakens actual trailers. Again, you do see a Star Destroyer, which could bring back the Star Wars Battlefront 2 type game modes, where you'd have the on-foot fights in the Star Destroyers and Rebel ships, as well as the dogfights going on outside in space, where you could actually have, again, Fighter Squadron type game modes going on, even if you don't have the on-the-foot game modes inside the Star Destroyers. With that all summed up, I do think there's a lot of potential for the Force Awakens DLC in Star Wars Battlefront. Obviously, with your main heroes, I'll just quickly run through it all again. Kylo Ren, Rey, Finn and Captain Phasma could all easily have their own special abilities. Also, with the First Order Stormtroopers and the Resistance soldiers, they can all easily use the star cards from the vanilla game, which will all fit in quite nicely like DICE normally do with their DLCs on Battlefield. Obviously, with locations from the trailers of the Star Wars Force Awakens, there's a lot of ideas that they could get from it, like the Starkiller base, the forest settings, the night forest settings, the Star Destroyers, and maybe even the big Death Star, which we actually see in the Star Wars Force Awakens poster. Maybe they could implement that into it, I'm not sure how, but I do think that could actually be used as well, along with the space battles based around the Star Destroyers that we see in the trailers. Now, on to the next sort of controversial topic for DLC, which is Star Wars Rebels. I put out a poll on Twitter actually to see what people wanted, whether they wanted Star Wars Clone Wars or Star Wars Rebels, and a lot came back straight away saying Clone Wars, but then it sort of balanced out a bit. So with Star Wars Rebels, I do think it could easily be used for heroes and villains as well, because you could use the Inquisitors as actual villains, and then you could use Ezra and Kanan as the main heroes in the game. You could even expand that because there is quite a lot of characters in it, so I'm not going to go into too much detail with it, but they could easily have their own special abilities and be easily put into the game because they're based in the original trilogy. Now, as well as this, the Star Wars Rebels series uses people as well as some droids, so I do think that the actual people characters, you could easily use the clone troopers in there. Obviously, we've got them already in Star Wars Battlefront, who could use the star cards, as well as the rebel troops from Star Wars Rebels. I think they could easily use star cards as well, so they can fit really well into the vanilla game, which will be really crucial for what DICE actually wants to do. I think they want to keep it pretty basic, and I do think they want the vanilla game to basically flow into DLC rather than have to change up the game completely for DLC to actually work. Now, with Star Wars Rebels, again, there was a tweet sent to EA Star Wars actually asking if Star Wars Rebels would be in the DLC, and EA again responded about the Season Pass, so it could be just a generic response they give to everyone, but I do think with this Season Pass response again, does sort of give the idea that maybe when the Season Pass is announced, we will hear more about Star Wars Rebels and the Clone Wars, but I'm not too sure. I do think Star Wars Rebels is more practical for the game than the Clone Wars is, although I'd really like to see the Clone Wars in Star Wars Battlefront and see what DICE do and put their spin on the Clone Wars. Star Wars website as well also mentions Lothal when it talks about the speeder bikes. So the fact that you might be able to use speeder bikes on Lothal, which is in Star Wars Rebels, kind of does link them two ideas up again. They link Star Wars Rebels with Star Wars Battlefront. So again, that heavily points towards Star Wars Rebels possibly being involved in Star Wars Battlefront, but I'm not too sure personally. I don't know how they'll actually get rid of this cartoony element of Star Wars Rebels and make it a bit more realistic like the game. I don't know about Star Wars Rebels. I'd like to see it, just because I don't know too much personally about Star Wars Rebels. I'm going to start and look into it more, but I'd still like to see that actually involved in Star Wars Battlefront to give it more variety and appeal to a wider audience. Now, onto the third topic I want to talk about today, which is the possibility of bringing back original Star Wars Battlefront maps. Like Mos Eisley, Bespin platforms, the Jedi Temple and Coruscant, Naboo Palace maybe, but no one really knows too much about what happened on Coruscant and Naboo during the original trilogy. Maybe it wasn't so under control of the Empire. Maybe it was, because actually Emperor Palpatine was the galactic representative of Naboo. So maybe it was heavily controlled. It'd be interesting to see if DICE do anything with the original maps in Star Wars Battlefront. I'd like to see it, but I'm not sure if they'll do it. Obviously, it would take a lot to sort of twist it around and introduce them into the original trilogy if there's not much already about them, but I do believe DICE have the potential and capabilities of doing it. We've all seen the Star Wars beta, we've all seen a lot of gameplay on Star Wars Battlefront, so I do think all of these ideas are possible, but it just depends if DICE want to sort of implement bits from outside of the original trilogy into the vanilla game. But guys, I hope you found this video actually informative, and I want to know what you guys want to see most, whether you want to see the Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels, whether you want to see original Star Wars Battlefront maps, and what maps from the original Star Wars Battlefront 2 games do you want to see. Other than that, guys, it's been Aurora. It's been good fun actually learning about these Star Wars Battlefront DLCs, and I hope I can keep bringing you more news and updates as the time goes on and we roll into the actual Star Wars Battlefront launch. So hopefully I'll see you again soon. Subscribe if you want to join the Aurora Alliance. Other than that, we'll see you again soon, and may the Force be with you.